Here are the top 10 worst games on the Atari 2600, according to fans of the 2600. Number 10 is Double Dragon. My first wife used to say, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. She was referring to my habit of eating random mushrooms in the woods, but the saying also applies to what they did with this game. They took a 1987 arcade game and released it on a 1970s home console. Obviously, a lot was lost in the transition. You can still do a variety of moves like jump kicks and elbow punches, but executing them is awkward since you only have one button to press. The enemies will also destroy new players until they learn how to spam the elbow punch. It was released in 1989, late in the 2600's lifespan, and at a time when people could play Double Dragon on the NES or Master System. So I don't know what the point of this game is. Number 9 is Snake. You are a hunter in the ancient Amazon and you're inside a fortress shooting animals as they walk by. It doesn't make much sense, but that's what the manual says, so we're going to take its word for it. The only thing that can kill you is the snake, so you have to dodge it anytime it weaves its way through your space. Game Variation 2 features 2 snakes, and that can get very challenging, especially since the controls are not ideal. You push right and left when you're on the upper and lower sides of the box, but you press up and down when you're on the left and right sides. There's also these blocks laying around everywhere which block your shots, and that's annoying, and they just make the game look ugly. So how did I come up with this list? I went to various places on the internet where people were talking about the worst games they themselves have played on the 2600. I found such conversations on Reddit, on YouTube, on Facebook, and on gaming site message boards. I also asked my own audience for their input with a YouTube community post. Using a spreadsheet, I recorded over 500 mentions of games from all those places, did some analysis, and came up with the ranked list you are seeing today. My own opinion did not factor into the rankings. I'm just telling you what the data showed. Also, I want to state that AI was not used at any point in this process, and I am not an AI voiceover. I'm real and I'm spectacular. I do hope you like this video. Let's get on with it. Number 8 is Custer's Revenge. This one is disturbing, so I'm going to be quick here so we can get past it. You move a naked General Custer across the screen while dodging arrows until he reaches a naked woman on the other side. Once there, you repeatedly hit the button to have sex with her. The company that made this marketed it as an adult game and gave conflicting statements as to whether or not the woman on the screen was a willing participant in the intercourse. Number 7 is Swordquest Earthworld. In this, you walk around picking up objects and dropping some objects in order to receive numerical clues, which in turn can be used to look up hidden clues within a comic book that came with the game. Interspersed within it all are mini games that have you trying to get to the other side of the room. If it all sounds too complex to be a 2600 game, it's because it is. In fact, when I was reading people's comments about the game, the one thing that was said over and over again was, quote, "As a kid, I was so lost." That matches my own experiences when I was playing this as a kid as well. As an adult, if you have a walkthrough sitting next to you, you can get a little bit of fun playing through the game, but for the most part, the concept they were going for just did not register with people. Number 6 is Skeet Shoot. Many people say that Atari 2600 games are too primitive to even bother playing. Never let those people see this game because they may win their argument. All you do is shoot the clay pigeons that travel across the screen, adjusting your angle depending on where you're positioned. Everything looks so drab, and the little man does not look like a human being, and nothing ever changes as you play it, and the sound is not going to win any awards. Those who play it may have a hard hard time shooting anything because the developer made the difficulty B switch the harder of the two difficulties. I said harder. For a much better target shooting game on the 2600, I recommend Air Sea Battle. Number 5 is Swordquest Fireworld. This is the second of the 3 Swordquest games to be released during the 1980s and is considered to be the worst of them all. Everything I said about Earthworld applies here, but this one has more bugs in it, which has led to speculation that it's an unfinished product. I found an old message board on Atari Age that asked which Swordquest game was the best, and one answer summed the series up perfectly. Quote, in order of preference, jumping into a pool of razor blades, pouring salt in my eyes, eating broken glass, Waterworld, Earthworld, Fireworld. There you go, folks. Number 4 is Pac-Man. This game divides fans like no other game in the library, except for maybe one that is coming up on the list. Some say that Pac-Man was okay for when it came out and for the system it was on. Others say it was a huge disappointment and boring to play. In fact, the battle between these two camps may play out in the comments below, so get your popcorn out. What cannot be argued is how diminished this version of Pac-Man is compared to the arcade game. Instead of fruit, you get a square wafer. Instead of dots to eat, you get lines. Instead of a variety of colorful ghosts, you get ones with a muted color that flicker. And instead of the distinctive arcade sound, you get bleeps and bloops that sound like a push-button telephone from the 1980s. It was tolerable at the time, but later the 2600 got the wonderful Ms. Pac-Man and Junior Pac-Man, and those two just make this one look bad by comparison. Number 3 is Hero. Using dynamite, a laser, and a little propeller, you have to descend down into a mine shaft to rescue a trapped miner. Once you rescue one, the stage ends, and you have to do it all over again for the next miner. It's mind-numbingly repetitive, and everybody hates it. Actually, this is a fake out. I put one of these on every list just to mess around with people. Hero is beloved by many, and so much so, it actually appears on my top 10 greatest Atari 2600 games list. So it doesn't belong on this list. The real number 3 is Firefly. You fly a machine bug that has to kill machine enemies. As they perish, they leave behind treasure, and you can move on to the next screen by going all the way to the right, even if you didn't kill all the enemies. Occasionally, there is a pixie that you have to rescue without touching the bees that are flying around it. The fact that there are different screens is lauded in the manual as being like having several games in one. That is the definition of hubris. The gameplay is barely better than Skeet Shoot in overall complexity, but the biggest negative is the quote music that plays throughout the game. We do have to account for it being over 40 years old, but I don't think anyone from any time period would ever want to hear that awful sound. Before we get to numbers 2 and 1, let's do some dishonorable mentions. These are games that barely missed being in the top 10. I'm just going to read them off in no particular order. Tax Avoiders, Slot Machine, Sorcerer, Golf, Space Jockey, Basic Math, Sneak and Peek, Swordquest Waterworld, and finally, Star Fox. And here are some miss honorable mentions. These are games that barely missed being in the dishonorable mentions. You may want to stay 20 feet away from all these games. Number 2 is Karate. My second wife used to tell me that I'm aging terribly, but if you put my face up against this game's visuals, suddenly I'm Chris Helmsworth. What you see is me playing it for the first and last time, and I can confirm with you that it plays as bad as it looks. By combining the button press with certain directional presses on the joystick, you can execute a handful of moves, but what it really adds up to is a bunch of button mashing. I realized there wasn't much in the way of fighting engines when this came out, but if you want to get your karate needs met on the 2600, I recommend Kung Fu Master instead. Editor, please edit that out because Kung Fu and karate are not the same kind of martial art. And number 1 is E.T. the Extra-Terrestial. If I had a veto card in these videos, I would use it right here. E.T., in my opinion, is better than all the other games on this top 10. I think the reason it's here is the result of groupthink, which by Wikipedia's definition is a psychological phenomenon that occurs within a group of people in which the desire for harmony or conformity in the group results in an irrational or dysfunctional decision-making outcome. E.T. has a title screen with music, hidden Easter eggs, an ending, and most importantly, has a randomizer for the various context-specific icons that appear on the top of the screen. Each time you play, those icons are in a different spot. This can lead to enjoyment as you go around hunting for what you need. Now, you do have to read the manual, and I also recommend the hint book that came with the game as well. You can find that stuff online. The various, quote, reporting about the cartridge burial is way off. Feel free to watch the documentary called Atari Game Over for more detail, but just know there were a variety of games buried with E.T., including many that are universally loved. So having been buried does not necessarily mean that E.T. was a bad game. I do recognize that people who were kids during the 1980s had trouble understanding the game, but go back to the game today after reading the manual, and I think you'll find that this game is at worst an average one for the 2600. You want to know what is above average? My other top 10 videos on this channel, so be sure to check some of those out. I'll see you next time.